Rutgers is a team that's interesting, though, right? Win total 6.5. The over's at plus 128 to the over, but you replace a bad quarterback with another bad quarterback. And yet you said something to me that I thought was interesting before the show. You said you like Rutgers this season. You like the over. You bet the over 6, right?
Yeah, I like the over a lot. I went and looked at a couple different shops. So luckily BetMGM still has it, and you're getting a good number there. What I like is just the schedule, man. I mean, their toughest games are Washington, USC, and UCLA. That's Rutgers' toughest schedule.
Yeah.
You look at the rest of the schedule for the Big Ten, and I like the roster. I mean, they bring a ton back. Now, I wish they would have got any other quarterback in the portal other than Kaliakmanis. I didn't really like him at Minnesota, which is why Minnesota's going with an FCS quarterback this year. But you bring back the leading rusher in the Big Ten. You also add Dymere Miller from Monmouth. I know he's coming from the FCS, but he led the FCS in receptions. He had 90. He led him in receiving yards. Like, he's awesome. The offensive line's pretty good. They don't have a whole lot of depth, but they have a bunch of experience. And then the front four is going to be able to get a bunch of heavy pressure. They're not going to have to blitz a whole lot. Aaron Lewis is back. He had 49 tackles last year, 3 sacks. Wesley Bailey had 4 sacks. They play a ton of nickel, so I worry like a little bit because they only have one guy coming back in the secondary. But, I mean, I really liked them last year. They ended the season with a win over Miami in the Pinstripe Bowl. And I like the schedule. Like I said, you avoid Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. And your toughest games are Washington, USC, and UCLA. So I like Rutgers to win 8-9 games maybe this year and go back to a bowl game and win another bowl game. So I'm all about Rutgers on these like mid-tier teams. I think they're my favorite mid-tier Big Ten team this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. You look at the fact that they play Howard, Akron, you get UCLA at home. Not saying that that's going to be like a game that you're going to be favored in, but you are at the crib, and they're a West Coast team going all the way across the country in the first year of a new conference. You play USC in a down year. You play Minnesota at home, and I know we all kind of like Minnesota a little bit. And then you play Maryland on the road, and I think Maryland's pretty down. So there's a lot. Michigan State at the crib, or away at their crib, is kind of an interesting game. You play Illinois at home. There's a lot of teams that Rutgers could sneakily beat.
Yeah. I mean, they were good last year. They were really sneaky last year. They
Super
lose Max
sneaky.
Melton.
They were like a low total machine.
Yeah, I think 7 wins is their basement. So that was one of the first win totals that I played in the Big Ten. In fact, one of the only win totals that I played in the Big Ten. I'm going back and forth. I know we haven't talked about him yet on Wisconsin with Tyler Van Dyke coming over.
Yeah.
I just think
That
like
guy was
6.5.
supposed to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft.
I think yeah, I know, but 6.5 for Fickle, man. Van Dyke had a bunch of injuries there. It just didn't really work out. But I don't know. In that offense, he might look all right. And then I like the top-tier teams like Ohio State and Oregon. But I'm all about Rutgers this year to win at least 7 games. So I think that's a really good price that you could still bet. Won't be shocked if it moves a little bit.
I mean, they're going to be able to run the football a lot. They got talent in the backfield. And that's really what it comes down to.
Leading rusher in the Big Ten. Probably the easiest schedule. Like when I was looking at these schedules in the Big Ten, man, I mean, they're ridiculous. Everything's changed. The Big Ten and the SEC are crazy.
Yeah.
And then you look at like the Big 12, and that's why I like Utah so much this year. But it's going to be tough, and that's why I like Rutgers this year because they avoid all the top guns this year.
They play each other on October 12th. We had somebody on last night that I asked about this that would not give me an answer. But I need an answer for you. Like, how does Oregon match up with Ohio State in that game?
Well, there's 2 games this year where I already have the menu set for that day. That's one of them, and then Georgia, Texas. Those are the 2 games I cannot wait to watch this year. I think both are going to go down to the wire. I think they match up well. I give Ohio State a little nod on the defensive side of the ball. I think Oregon's going to have to outscore them. I think that's one where they say, listen, we got to hang 40 today. And they just go out, they play with their hair on fire. They're going to have to go forward on some 4th downs. I think Ohio State's a little bit more talented. I feel like they're going to get out of Autzen Stadium with a close, tight win in that game, and that's going to give them the Big Ten championship. But that's one that's going to go down to the wire, and I would expect with all that offensive firepower on the field with those 2 teams, the over going to be in the high 70s, and it might not be enough.
Tom, the 2 teams that I was looking to bet this year were going to be Wisconsin, year 2 for Luke Fickell. Then I saw that schedule, and I was like, absolutely not. Yep. And then year 2 for Matt Rule is always usually where he starts to win. Like year 1, you build the culture. So what do you think about Nebraska and then Wisconsin in the Big Ten this season?
I actually was exactly with you. Those were the two teams I was looking at, and I'm all over Nebraska for a couple of reasons. One, the schedule. What a dream schedule. No Oregon, no Penn State, no Michigan. They could be 7-0 when they go to Ohio State on October 26th. They're sitting at a win total of 7.5. Their defense last year goes from 11th to 5th in the Big Ten. I think it's going to be a top 15 college football defense this year, and then the addition of Dylan Raiola. Listen, I watched this kid in the spring. Former Georgia commit. He looks like he's worth the hype. And it's interesting because Patrick Mahomes, he's a big fan, and he's got the same body type, the same number, the same throwing motion. It's kind of eerie. I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes, but wait till you see him. I think that's the best quarterback Nebraska's had in a long time. I agree with you 100%. Those were two teams I was eyeing this year. But with these new expanded conferences, I think schedules are more important than ever. You look at what Alabama has this year, that's not the old Nick Saban schedule. Georgia might have the toughest schedule in all of college football. If they get through that undefeated, God bless them. But schedule-wise, that makes me lean towards Nebraska. I like them over 7.5 wins, but I do think Wisconsin's going to catch a couple of teams this year.
He's only seen an injury like Porzingis' once in 25 years.
Wow.
Jesus. However, he was optimistic about Porzingis' ability to play. A lot of times the ankle and the tendon can be taped to allow to play. There are even braces that they can use to help protect the tendon. I don't think that that's something that he can make worse by playing, especially if he's just running up and down the court and some lateral movements. I don't think that's how basketball works. Up and down, some lateral movements.
Some lateral
that's
movements?
not how it goes. Like, what, he's not going to be able to defend now? Like, that's all lateral movements. This can be a repetitive issue if he has awkward landings with his foot. You mean like trying to block a dunk?
Right. Or shoot.
That causes subluxation of the tendon, which means popping out. I don't think it's a season-ending injury, but it is something that they will have to treat with taping or bracing and then reassess if he is stable enough for him to play.
It has that feel of he's going to give it a go, probably be in pain and be very limited and out there almost more as a distraction than anything else, a decoy.
Could be unders for Kristaps Porzingis.
If they even offer it. There's nothing really even out there right now.
I know, I looked right away.
That's what I worry is that books aren't even going to give us the option for that. And like, honestly, if they were to, if they're to set, like, what would it be? What would his points, what would be,
I was hoping
11.5?
I was hoping that's what I was hoping for, but I was thinking probably more along the lines of like 9.5, 8.5, how they were pricing Horford to start the series, even how they're still pricing him. And I would have still bet the unders, because if he's out there, it's probably going to be like max 12 to 15 minutes, and it's going to be like, hey, protect the rim. Maybe hit a shot, but how many field goal attempts is he going to get in limited action? And if he's not really able to move around, what's he going to do? Just sit up at the three-point line?
If someone hits him with the Euro step, he could fall, and that tendon can pop right out.
And that's the thing, man. Like, do you want him? Like, what if they try to force him over on the baseline or on top of the perimeter or on the wing?
Or what if they're posting up on him and just literally putting, Luka Doncic putting his body directly into KP?
Yeah. They're going to have to probably keep him off the court, though. They're going to have to protect him from himself because he's not going to sit out in the NBA Finals. He said he'd die on the floor. I believe him.
That's kind of why I feel like at this point it's one of those things where he's just going to play and doesn't care if the injury gets worse, and he's just going to fight the pain because the season's almost over anyway.
Ask Isaiah Thomas about that. He didn't get his bag, and he never played again.